Hello everyone and welcome back to Chess Lessons Programming with me. So in the last lesson we got introduced to Unity, and today what we're going to be doing is, as you can see, this. We're going to be organizing our game so that it looks like this. I've already made it so that I have something to refer to in case I get stuck, which does usually happen, as you know. So let's get started. This is what we left off last time, which was pretty much all incorrect, but I just wanted to get it all out there to show you how things work. So basically we can just delete pretty much everything on here. We know that the board is drawn incorrectly. We're not going to be using the board as I mentioned before. However, we can have it there just as an image to look at if we want to. So the first thing we want to add is a canvas. A canvas is basically going to working like the camera. However, I don't exactly know how to explain it. This is going to be kind of the canvas. So how we do that is, well, we right click UI and we look for canvas. And there we go. Any element you place in here has to be in the canvas, meaning you have to put it inside of the canvas. So if I wanted to put a black pawn, I had to put it inside the canvas. It can't exist outside the canvas. Okay, so now that we got that out of the way, well, it's just blank. Let's make it have a background. Why don't we add an image? UI image. It's quite simple actually. I am going to use the same color as I used in the example. So how we change the color is we look to the right here, and I'm just going to use the color picker to get the color I want. You can use the color picker on my YouTube video if you like the color as well, or just pick your own color. You can click on here and choose your own color. I'm just going to Ctrl Z and move back. I want this to fit my canvas. Okay, so I'm just going to resize it. However, my canvas can be different, as you can see, so different displays will have it differently, so I don't really want this blue space to be here. There is a way to go around that, which is going to the main camera and change this to be in the same color, and that changes it. However, that's not the way I would like to go about doing it. So let's just go back. I mean, just to make sure you can't keep that color, just in case something bad happens. However, the best way to deal with this is to use anchors. So what are anchors in Unity? Well, they're basically points at which the element, so in our case the image, holds onto its parent. So the anchors can be outside the element itself, but they cannot be outside its parent. However, because our image is the same size as our canvas, well, it can't be outside the image either. However, if you were to move the image outside of the canvas or the parent element, you still cannot move the anchors onto the element, onto the image element in our case. So the best case for us to put the anchors is to put them on the corners, as you see here. Why? Well, this is because when we stretch our display, so if you have, say, a mobile phone, that's going to be smaller and it might have different dimensions, so it might be 1:1 aspect ratio. A normal well, not a normal computer, but a normal monitor, I guess nowadays, is 16:9 ratio, and that would be something like that, whereas a mobile phone might be something like that, depending on which way you turn your phone. Your phone could also be something like this if it's turned horizontally. So as you can see, this is actually stretching the exact same way as my display stretches, and that's exactly the way we want it to be, so that when the display changes, the elements inside don't actually feel much of a change and they still fit inside of our display the way we want them to. To zoom in and out, you just use a scroll wheel if you haven't figured that one out yet. Just thought I'd throw that in. So now that we've got our image set up, which is going to be our background, well, let's call it the main panel, because, well, everything's going to be on top of it. Now, I did mention that order does matter in here sometimes, and in our case it will. So basically how the order works is the element that you put in first here goes at the very back, i.e. gets rendered first, so it's going to be in the background. So if I put this on here, it will behave differently though, if I was to put a rook, because that's a sprite and it's kind of weird, treated weirdly, which there's a different way to go about that. We're just going to treat it as an image because we don't need it as a sprite. So as you can see, it does actually just go behind it. However, we don't need that for now. We're not at that stage yet. So, okay, let's zoom out and work here. Now, let's set up first of all the text such as the game, chess, and the button. We can set up what the button does later on. Again, similarly to how we did it beforehand, we can just add a UI element, take a button, there we go, new game, btn. I like to either put btn in front or at the back of the element just to know that it's a button, because Unity, as you can see, doesn't actually tell you what it is without having the name. You can again drag and drop the button to where you would like. I'm going to put it right there. I want my board, my chessboard, to be about here. It's going to be a square, so perhaps I want it around there. It really all depends to you. Then on the right hand side, again, we can customize what our button looks like. So again, I'm going to use the color picker and use a brown color for our button. You can even change the font. If you want to import fonts, then you can do that if the font doesn't exist, and you do that in the assets, and then you can just use the font that you have. Let me just find the text. Oh no, so if you want to edit the text inside the button, you have to use the little arrow on the left here, as you can see, and you go to the text. So now we can edit the text, because the text and the button itself are treated as different elements, and to change the text, you go onto the text in the button and you just change it. What I want to change it to is just new game, because, well, that's what the button is going to do. Now notice that although the frames are the same, I can actually resize this independently of resizing the button. Why would I want to do this? Well, I don't... Okay, let's go back and change the font size. If I want it to be, well, okay, maybe not 100. 20. No, that doesn't fit with my example. I just want to... Okay, there we go. New. If the word was just new for now, I would like to show you. I don't exactly want it to be that close to the edges of my button. However, if I was to, well, there's also another option which I am just looking for right here, which allows you to change the text size depending on how big the button is. I cannot exactly find it right now. That's kind of annoying. Ah, here we go. Best fit. If you press on best fit, then you can change it to 1 to 100. So now what happens is, when you resize the size of the text box, the text inside it changes to fit it best, and you change the minimum and maximum size using min size and max size. So, okay, let me change the size of the button for now first, and that looks fine. Let's go to the text. New game. Now, as you can see, the text is sticking to the button. I don't exactly want that. So what I'm going to do is actually shrink the text box size without shrinking the button size itself. And that makes it so that it looks slightly nicer. Now, again, there are anchors here. I am again going to position the anchors on the edges of the, or I mean the corners of the text box itself. There we go. Once I can actually get it there, there we go, good. I also want to reposition the anchors of the button to the corners of itself, perhaps after shrinking it slightly. I'm just looking over here to best fit my needs, and then I can reposition the anchors. This is all going to make sense in just a second. So similarly to how we changed the size of the panel, now when we change the size of the panel, the button is also going to change, as you can see. And now it stretches to fit it, so it looks again much nicer. I really like that personally. If you don't, you can change the anchor positions to somewhere else as well. There are already some preset ones over here. I know the positioning of the anchors can be slightly difficult for the corners, but you just have to deal with it sometimes. So now we have the new game button set up. If we want to make the button interactive, let me just find the, here we go. On click, and you can choose after you've actually started programming what it does. But for now we just want to set out what our game is going to look like, because chess programming isn't just about programming, but it's also about game design. And for now, I think that we need to focus on game design before we can program it, so that we know what we're dealing with. So now we have the button. Let's put the text in as well. So UI, text, very simple. I want it about there somewhere. I want it to just say chess. So just a simple description. Again, best fit 10 to 100. You can put it even 1000 if you really wanted to. You can put that as 1. Oh no, I guess 300 is the max size. Oh well, that doesn't really matter. I don't think that any monitor would be that massive anyway. Okay, good. Let's resize that. Maybe slightly smaller. That's looking fine to me. Doesn't exactly matter too much. And again, I'm going to move the anchors to fit it to go on its corners, just like before. If I can get them on there properly. As you can see, even I struggle. Getting a lower DPI mouse can help. So make sure not to spin it around, but to change the anchor location. Sometimes it is just fine to leave it if it's just a really partially small, or just not positioned perfectly. That should be fine. So now when we stretch that like that, the text also grows, or gets bigger, whatever you want to call it. There we go. That's set up. Now, probably the most important part that we're going to be dealing with is the board itself. So, let's get onto that. Main panel, once more, let's minimize that. I'm going to put that in front of there, not that it really matters because they're not overlapping. My board is going to be an image, so or a canvas actually. Let me just find another canvas. So you can put a canvas on top of a canvas. No, sorry, it is going to be an image. So let me just delete the canvas. Once more, UI image. Now let's make sure that that's the correct size, or the size that we want it to be anyway. I'm just going to make it in line with the buttons. And I do want it to be a square. Make sure that it's a square because a chessboard is a square itself. Or at least the tiles. So let's make it 500 by 500, and then we can resize it using the shift button on our keyboards. Oh wow, it's skipping the pixel now. It's really annoying when this happens. There we go. And then the height. Almost there. You can do it. There we go. Now if you hold your shift button, and you can resize it in the same aspect. So I'm going to put it in line with my text and my button, as I said before. You can just drag it down. And I think that that should be fine for my purposes. So let's call this the board. Now, because I am going to be using a pre-made script, which I'm going to provide a download for in the description down below. I am going to get it from this website. I'm going to provide this website, not my own download link for this, because, well, credits. I'm going to be giving credits to this. You just scroll down here, you get the Unity package, you download that, it's going to be a zip file. You put the zip file in your assets folder, so down here. You extract it, and then you get the folders. No, you get a project, a Unity project. So let me just get that all out and I will show you what I mean. So when you download it, you get it as this zip file. What you do is right click, you extract here or extract files. I'm just going to do extract here because it's simpler. Then you go back to your project. It should just show up over here. What you then do is you double click it or you press open here. And you're going to get this window, and you just click import. Make sure all of those are ticked because you need all of those. Once you do import, you just wait as it says hold on, and there we go. The best thing to do is probably to create a new folder and call it something like grid layout organizer. Doesn't exactly matter. I'm going to put that in there. I'm going to put that in there. What else came with it? Is that really it? Nah, something else came with it as well, didn't it? That's quite annoying. Ah, yep, that came with it as well. So the scripts grid layout goes in there. So you have editor and scripts for UI. There we go, good. So let's just keep those in there for now. Now, because we are going to be using this, we want to add an image on top of this, or in this. And therefore we will call this parent board. And we will call this itself the board. I do believe that both of them are an image. Yes, that is correct. Just referring to my other project. So now that we have the parent board and the board, inside the board we want to add a component, and this component is going to be auto grid layout group, which we just downloaded, and it should just show up. If it doesn't show up, just type in grid here and click on the second one, or whichever one is called auto grid layout group for you. Once you do that, we have this extra script that we've downloaded here. So we want 8 rows and we want 8 columns. And then we start adding canvases inside of this. Canvases because we want to import these as raw images inside of the canvases. So what we do is UI, and let me find the canvas. And inside of this we want to import UI raw image. And this raw image is going to be one of our elements, and we choose when you go on texture and you press on this small side button here, you can choose which image you want. For example, if I wanted to take the white king, I get the white king here. Now, because we don't have the correct amount of tiles inside of our canvas, it's not all going to, or inside of our board, it's not going to work properly. But once we get 64 inside of there, it should be fine. So what we want to do is just copy and paste this a few more times. By a few more times I mean 63 more times. And this board is actually supposed to be the same size as its parent. There we go. Now perhaps not the best example. Let me just set this up real quick. So what we actually want to do is put an image, then a canvas, and then a raw image. So image, canvas, to hold the raw image, and then raw image. Oh, not button. Let's find it again. Raw image. There we go. Ignore that the size of the raw image is different for now, because, well, it is going to be different. We will have to do that manually. But for now, actually we can even delete that for now. What we want to do for now is change the name of this first. Square or tile, whatever you want to call it. Get 64 of those in total, meaning we want to paste 63 more. And there we go. And in each of them, we will want to add the raw image. Now, why I pasted those first and without pasting this in is because it's easier to deal with. I will show you what I mean. So once I've got my canvas size in there, I can even make these images black for now. Let's do that. Let me I'm just going to do that, the simple thing, going in there. I'm making it black just to make it easier to see for myself and for you. So now I want to resize this in the size of approximately, well, not approximately, we want it to be smaller than our canvas. But actually it doesn't even matter. We want to add a texture. So how you add a texture is going in here, as I showed you before. In the top left corner, we're going to have the black rook. There we go. Now we can resize our rook to be the size that we want it to be. We can look over here just to see. And we've centered it as well. I actually want it slightly thinner. Now, because we've got the exact size that we wanted, all of our squares are going to be that size as well. So we can just copy this raw image and paste it inside of our canvases. If it doesn't go inside of the canvas straight away, then you want to, as you saw me do, raw image, drag and drop. So we can call this raw, instead of calling it raw image, we can call it piece, for example. There we go. So we've got that piece, and then we want to move it over to here as well. You are going to have to manually move them over like I am doing right now, and you are also going to have to manually change what they are. So black knight goes there, and then you, as you saw me do, you will also have to manually change the color of all of the squares. So this color is going to be black. So I'm just going to simply delete this and copy and paste it over from my other project, but you are going to have to just do it manually. There's no easier way. I did do it manually last time I was working on the project, and I couldn't think of a faster way. If you do, post it in the comments. It's probably going to help out everybody else. So let me just do this quickly. So once you've done that, your game should look something like this. You should also have imported the pieces. I know that the contrast between the black pieces and the black background is kind of bad, so I might change the black background to something else later on. However, for now, we get the point across. Also, what I have done is put the coordinates on the squares themselves of where they are. For example, this square is 0, 0, this one 0, 1, this one would be 3, 3, I mean 2, 2, because I'm starting at 0. Also, do make sure to add a raw image inside of the blank squares as well. So what I've done for that is, so I've made also folders just to keep my things organized. I've made a blank image as well. So just like I've done with the pieces, the squares which contain a piece. So let me just scroll down. For example, there's a bishop in here. As you can see, the raw image contains the bishop image. Also do the same for the squares at first which don't have anything. So canvas, raw image, and I have imported a blank image in there. I can actually provide the blank image in my assets folder as well. However, as I said before, the auto grid layout files is not going to be inside of the assets folder in my link. I'm going to provide a separate download link for that. As you saw in this video, you know where to download it from. And that's what it's going to look like once you're done with this. In the next lesson, we're just going to continue. I think that in the next lesson, we can even start programming a few things. Let me just minimize this, and there we go. As you can see, this is what you should have. For now, event system is just there by default. Don't delete it, don't do anything with it. It's required for the game to work. So how you start to play the game is by pressing this. Because we've added no functionality in our game for now, nothing is actually going to happen. You can click the button and it's going to change color, but it's not going to trigger any events. You can pause it using that. Pause is different from stop. How you stop it is just clicking on the play button once again. So we're at this point. If you're struggling with it, do feel free to post in the comments down below, asking for help. I will be happy to help you out. But yeah, that's it for today's lesson. I think it might be slightly longer than it should be, but I think that should be fine. Hope that you don't mind that. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up, like, share, subscribe, do all of that good stuff. If you didn't, tell me in the comments why you didn't, dislike, do all of that bad stuff, bad in inverted commas, but it still helps me out as it is still feedback. I know how to improve. Until next time, thank you so much for watching and goodbye.